Hopefully it won't be too bad. All right. We're
Sure.
live here. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this. Welcome back to the show. I think you've done one of my year-end shows, and then I had you on for the book with um what's his name? The bassist from Lit. Why am I
Kevin Baldus from Lit, Hell the photographer as well. You've seen a lot of his photos, but probably not realized they're him. Like when you see Night Ranger publicity shots and Steven Tyler and all that, that's Kevin.
Yeah. No, I mean I follow him on Instagram, and so I do see I feel like he posts some of the stuff there, right?
Yeah, it's funny though. If you were to meet him or identify him, you have to call him Kevin from Lit. But there's a lot more to Kevin from Lit than being Kevin from Lit.
Yeah. Well, he's a hell of a nice guy too.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed him. And they're coming to Arizona. I've never seen Lit live. So I'm hoping to go to the show. I can't remember when it was, but I saw that it was I think was it maybe a casino or something? I don't know. You've probably seen them before, right?
That checks out. Yeah, the last time I saw them was a couple of weeks ago with Marvelous 3. Was that a band you were ever into?
It was. Yeah, actually, it's so funny. This guy that used to cut my hair was telling me about them, and he said, "Oh, there's this band called Marvelous 3," and I was like, "Oh, is that the guy with is that the band with the guy from South Gang?" Which I had never heard South Gang, but I had read about both bands in Metal Edge, and I read that the guy Butch Walker from South Gang started this band called Marvelous 3, and I'd read about, and I don't think I'd ever later I listened to South Gang, but that haircutter guy gave me a CD of the Marvelous 3. I'm not sure if it was a copy or like, but I feel like it had a jacket, like maybe he photocopied the inner thing or whatever. But yeah, and I remember listening and going, "Oh, this is cool." It's like it was like melodic. And then obviously I followed them after that. And then he did he's written with a bunch of I think he wrote with the guy from Train.
I believe that's on the list. Lit was also on the list, but I think the there's Adika.
Yeah, Adika says hi.
Who doesn't love that Adika?
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure Adika knows Butch Walker or knew him in the South Gang era. I would just have to do the math right there. But Butch wrote hits for Bowling for Soup and Avril Lavigne and SR-71. And I think he produced some of Taylor Swift's re-records. I mean, he's an A-list guy, but most people don't make the connection. That's the guy from South Gang and Marvelous 3.
Yeah, no, it's cool. That's I didn't realize he was still touring as Marvelous 3, you said? It was actually...
Yeah, they regrouped, and so it's kind of like Atlanta, Chicago, Boston, New York, just a mini kind of tour. And I went to the New York one. Lit was playing, so I said, "Can't miss this. Can't miss the Marvelous 3." And I was talking to a friend who I didn't know was there, and she said, "Oh yeah, the same people who are here tonight were in Chicago and Atlanta." So meaning I think most of the crowd flies to every single show. That's how devoted Marvelous 3 fans are.
That's crazy. That's kind of like here we have Roger Klein, you know, who's in the Refreshments, who like for people who don't know, they do the theme song to King of the Hill show, which was like a big, and I think that might be how he made most of his money from music anyways, is from that theme. He probably made more off that theme song than any concert or other song that he ever did. But yeah, his solo band, they'll do a show all over the state. Or like one time we were in Vegas and we were at this bar and we're talking to these people like, yeah, we came to see Roger Klein in Vegas, and they lived in Arizona. We became friends with them, but yeah, they have hardcore diehard fans that will just, and then not a lot, not like can't fill an arena, but enough that he can do a show all over the place and people will come. It's kind of nice.
Does he still have a tequila, Roger?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Moonshine, I think it's called Moonshine, Genius. Something like that. Yeah, that is. And then there's another band, I think you've had them on too, the Black Moods, and they're following kind of a similar path as him. They have a devout cult following, and they have their own wine, I think, and I think a gin or vodka, something to it, maybe a couple of those. But yeah, that's kind of what we got here. I mean, we obviously Alice Cooper lives in Arizona, and the Gin Blossoms are from here. We got some other ones too, but those are kind of the two kind of cult following ones that are big here. I'm sure New York has so many bands, right?
We do, but you're missing out on some of Arizona's proudest sons. You got Jimmy Eat World. That's up there.
Yeah, but they don't do like a lot of like local kinds of shows. You know what I mean? Whereas like the Black Moods and the Roger Klein, like you could just check their calendars. Like they'll be doing a show like it maybe like usually like around once a month, if not more, in Arizona that you can drive to. Whereas I don't think Jimmy Eat World and Gin Blossoms and those other bands, I don't think they do that.
Well, the secret of Gin Blossoms, one of the most bizarre things. And oh, hold on, Donnie V got on stage with Butch's band. Really?
Oh, in New York or?
Didn't happen in New York. I'm going to guess
probably Chicago.
Yeah,
because that's where Donnie V's from. That makes sense. Yeah, that checks out because I bet you they're mutual fans of each other. I'm sure.
Yeah, Donnie V has such. How do I put this? If Donnie V played to 500 people in a crowd, that's probably 500 producers, co-writers, songwriters in that crowd who you're a fan of. In other words, Paul Gilbert from Mr. Big is a huge fan. My friend Linus, who works at Bowling for Soup, is a diehard fan. All these people love Donnie, but not the record buying public.
Yeah, I mean, the first show I ever saw at the Whiskey was Enough's Enough with Chip fronting it, actually. But that's in LA. So that was a bunch of the Enough's Enough diehards there. And supposedly he said, God, who was it? He said that the singer from Muse was there, which I immediately ran to try to look and find him.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. And then there was somebody else and I can't remember. And there was a guy that looked like Howard Stern, but it wasn't Howard Stern, but I thought it might be because I know he's a big diehard fan too.
Yeah, Howard Stern kind of whitewashes the past just a tiny bit. But Howard Stern's favorite band in the early 90s in the world was Enough's Enough.
Oh, yeah.
He would go out of his way to talk about them at random times, but that never happened, right? The First Marriage never happened. Enough's Enough never happened. He never wore blackface. Nothing. Never happened.
Oh, is he denying all the Enough's Enough stuff now?
I think that when you listen to Howard 100 or the repeats, they've edited out voices because I know when a certain stuttering person on the show sued.
They edited him out?
Yeah.
Wow.
They've cut out certain people from the history. I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but Jackie Martling has said that they've cut him out of things. Artie's said that they've cut him out of things. So you're listening to the old segment, but different voices or lines are cut out.
Weird. That is that. And you said that's because some people got cut out because they sued, and then other people got cut out just because they don't like them anymore.
Allegedly, it's going to be one of many times I say the word allegedly, Chuck. It's
right.
That's the word because once Howard, Adika's got the point there. That was the thing that he talked about, possible urination with Madonna.
Yeah, that's some wild stuff. Like, yeah, that is great. And I just think that, and that's interesting too because she was such a big star. And again, I love Enough's Enough, but they were not at Madonna level. So like, how did they even cross paths? I mean, I guess if, like you said, if they're such an indie favorite of all the musician people, maybe she would have just been at a show or something. That would have been interesting. Or maybe the same party or something.
Two ways you can go with that. One, isn't the guitarist in Madonna's band or the bass player, the guy from Prong?
I did not know that. You know more about music than I do, I think.
I don't know about that, but the other direction I was going to go, one of my big obsessions is finding out defunct music venues in just random towns that nobody knows exists. So in my town and the neighboring town, there's a place that nobody knows was a music video, but the Kinks played there. I just figured that out. And I was looking at this old routing. I saw Madonna played there. And I've heard a few clubs here on Long Island, no-name clubs that have disappeared. Madonna played there. So I'm wondering at what year she went from doing a nightclub and doing like a 2-3 song lip sync and getting out of there. What year she graduated from that to like the Beastie Boys tour and arenas?
That's a good question. Yeah. I just think the fascinating thing about Madonna to me is, well, first off, like how she kept reinventing herself and was still popular. But then I think she finally reached that point where, and it was a few years ago, where she went on some award show or something, and everybody compared her, the way she looked, to Jigsaw from the Saw movies, like her plastic surgery. I think she had finally reached the limit. It's like, look, lady, like you had a good run. You had like 30 or 40 years of popularity and being sexy and all. And it's like, you know what? I think you're over. Like you're not. I think it would be okay if she just aged naturally and just, she could still sing the songs and stuff, but isn't she like a grandma? Like, I feel like grandmas are supposed to wear like sweaters and like knit and like bake cookies and she's trying to be like, she's like still 20. And it's like, you're not 20, and that's okay. It's okay. But like, I don't know. I think she just tried a little too hard in my opinion.
I'm mostly with you there, although what a grandparent is has changed because
Well, that's
Kiefer
true.
Sutherland became a
That's true.
grandpa when he was
Yeah.
41. So
Did he?
yeah, you
Wow.
never know when that stuff happens. Whenever I go to out of state stuff and you wind up small talking with people and you look at them and you go, I think they're like 5 to 10 years older than me. And then you start to hear about their grandchildren. You go, oh, okay. So people start having kids when they're 18 or 19 in these parts. Got it. Then their kids started having kids when they were between 16 and 20. Okay, that's how you're a great grandparent. Oh,
I mean, I'm 46, so if I had a kid when I was 23, and then my kid had a kid when he was 23 or she, I
mhm.
could easily be a grandparent, easily. Like, so it's scary to think about that. And my brother had his oldest, I think she is about 23. Yeah, I think she's about 23. So
Yeah.
she could have a kid and he could be a grandfather, which is wild to me because he does not look like a grandfather, doesn't have like a lot of gray hair or anything. You know,
Mhm.
it's like he just, I don't know. You're right. I think what's become a grandparent has changed.
Yeah, certain people pull off the aging, certain people pull off the flexibility and fitness thing until the very end. You just never know. Vince Neil, I think he's aging the way that most people age, but not everybody has to be Vince Neil.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like his weight is gotten a little out of control. I think I worry about him. Like, I mean, jokes aside, because I know that everyone makes the jokes and stuff, but I mean, that's like it becomes like troublesome where you look at him. I think he's lost a little bit of weight now for some of the tours. I think he got in a little bit better shape, but I don't, and also just his health in general. Like, I think he's still drinking and stuff. And it's like, dude, you can't party like a rock star.
Allegedly, you think he's still drinking?
Well, I'm pretty sure he is. I mean, I think if he went sober, you'd hear about it. He would be like, probably one of those people like, hey, it's my sober birthday, just like Nikki. Like Nikki's like, oh, it's my 2.75 or 22.75 year birthday. He's always talking about sobriety. Like the people that go 100% sober, they're very vocal about it usually. Sometimes not.
It's kind of like how can you tell somebody's a vegan? Because they'll tell you they're a vegan.
Yeah.
There's a lot of subgenres of human beings that are very eager to tell you what they are.
Yeah. What is that? What was that CrossFit? It's like, what is the rule? The first rule about CrossFit is you must talk about CrossFit or something like that. I think that's the joke. Like,
yeah, bummer, bummer. But I let's see. If I trace the topics back, Vince Neil, Madonna, Cat Lady, music venues. Before that, Enough's Enough, Howard Stern. Before we were at Howard Stern and the removing the voices and the editing and the revisionist history.
This is great,
Donnie
though.
V,
We can just go down the rabbit hole. Like, I don't have
Butch
any.
Walker, Marvelous
Butch Walker.
3, Lit, Kevin from Lit. Everyone likes. So this all happened from
Wow.
Kevin Baldus from Lit.
I think I have Alzheimer's because I didn't remember any of that, and you traced it all back perfectly. Like, that was amazing. That was like a what do you call that? Like not an intelligence test, but like a with it test. Like if we just tested you for Alzheimer's, like you pass, like you don't have Alzheimer's, like you're good. You're mentally
Camera,
there.
man, person. What is that thing again?
You're forgetting it. What is it? Cameraman, Apple? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but whatever it is.
You don't drink very much, do you at all?
It depends because I can stop at 1 drink or 2 drinks or something like that. Not a problem at all. But you'll have that, the 3 nights in a row where you've had a few drinks and you go, I'm not going to drink for a while because I can tell it slows me down. And then out of nowhere you go, that was kind of fun. Why don't I do that more often? And then you go, I could be a 1 a day kind of person. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I go through periods. Like I actually went like 3 years or something for a while. Like after my grandma, for whatever reason, after my grandma died, I think because I had too many at the wake or whatever, is like an Irish wake. And I just had way too many. And I was like, dude, what was I? And then I was like, I'm done drinking I thought maybe forever at that point, but I think I went like 3 years. And then I was like, okay, I think I can have some. And now I think I'm a little more careful. And, but I'll still go like, I'll say, like it's more for like health reasons than anything else. But I'll go like months, or I'll say like, okay, I did this like program with like 75 hard. And I was like 75 days, no booze. It's part of the rules. So I was like, okay, it's not a problem for me. I don't mind being sober, but I like to have, a few every now and then, like, especially at like family functions or, like Christmas or like Thanksgiving. I was just Thanksgiving with my brother, and we were drinking too much. Like, it was like the day before Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving.
To rudely interrupt, I saw that social media posting where you led everyone taking a shot.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, because my uncle, they have this legendary Christmas party I've always wanted to go, and they're doing fireball shots, and I was like, this looks so fun, but it's on Christmas Eve, and I'm like, I doubt that I would ever be where he lives in Spokane, Washington on Christmas Eve. Like, I'd have to like specifically go in for that party, and I was like, I doubt I'll ever make that, but it looks fun. So I thought, let's make our party look fun. Let's all do a shot of something, and so obviously I didn't give the alcohol to the kids, but most of the adults that were drinking that night had just whatever, like Screwball or whatever. I can't remember what we had, like some sort of liqueur. It wasn't anything crazy, but yeah, that was fun. It was a fun.
For me, the relationship with alcohol changed because of work stuff, and that sounds totally misleading to where you think it's going to go. The first is that when you write about booze for companies, the swag bags from booze companies is like what record companies presumably were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like, I have it within reach. Like this JBL speaker, Budweiser sent me that. And so you just one day you look in the mail and then there's a speaker and a bunch of booze in there, and you go,
how do you get signed up for that? Is that because you do interviews of the people that are promoting it, or?
Usually it's that kind of a thing, or they've earmarked a certain number of things for influencers, and I guess they ran out of influencers who actually cover the stuff, so they still send it to me. So when you get bottles after bottles after bottles, at first you're like a kid in a candy store, and you're like, I gotta try everything all the time.
Yeah.
And then eventually you graduate towards going, and there will always be more free booze. It's okay. And then the other thing was, I used to do undercover bar audits, where they give you a scenario and you have to order a certain number of drinks or appetizers, and you're at the bar and all that, and you're logging it, and you're looking for, handling of cash and mishandling of this and that. And I had this period when I was a much younger man where I was unemployed, and all I could find was undercover audits, really. So I'd go like 2 or 3 bar audits a day.
And you have to have a drink at these, I'm assuming, an alcoholic drink.
Yeah. And then the bartenders, I do that one place and I do a great report. And then the scheduler would go, hey, we need somebody, if you know anybody, for that same place. I go like, I could go again. They go like, sure. And then I started going to the same places over and over and over again. So the bartenders thought that I was a regular and not a spotter.
Oh.
So then I had like 3.
So what are you spotting for? What are you looking for under, like, something, some sort of illegal activity, or what?
Sometimes it's looking for cash mishandling, or if they're comping drinks or overpouring. Sometimes they want to see about brand placements, if the bartender's suggesting food.
So kind of like a secret shopper. Is that what they used to call it, that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mystery shopper, secret shopper, auditor, evaluations, a lot of different names for the same thing.
Yeah. So what happened? Can you tell us about your job? Because I know you were a PI and you worked for some company, and you're complaining about it. You're like, oh, I fucking hate these people. And then, like,
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. But like, did they let you go, or you quit, or so you ended up parting ways with this company, right?
Yeah, I can't say too much about what happened, but I've been working with different companies and freelancing and taking on different gigs within the investigations world. The DLR book, not like shamelessly promoting it, but a lot of that was rooted in my investigations work, because a lot of people think, okay, your book of Van Halen stuff has nothing to do with your PI stuff, and it's like, no, it's the same skill set of tracking people down and looking up people. So the way that, for that book, I would go, well, who managed Dave at this time? Okay, let's open up the liner notes. Let's look at the names here. Let's trace who these people are. It's the same deal as you get, okay, we want a background check on this person. Here's the documents we have. Go. So it's accidental job leading into accidental job over and over and over again.
Yeah. So did you break some stories with that book? Like, was there information that had not been out publicly to the world with that book. That, I mean, because I read the book obviously, and I remember
Thank you again.
there was a lot of stuff in there, but I didn't know, is this stuff that was not in other books or other interviews or whatever, or did you just compile a lot of things that were maybe already out there, but then put it all together in a book?
I definitely had a lot of exclusives in there, stuff about the movie that Dave was hired to write, star in, and direct, called Crazy from the Heat, which, was around the time of his Van Halen stuff. I tracked down some people that hadn't really done interviews. I figured out the identity of a person that was in all of his music videos that no one could figure out, stuff like that, and what happened. I was able to figure out different musicians who played on things that people don't really know about. I was able to get to the bottom of this Vegas residency and how the band you saw on stage was not the band that rehearsed, and why that was. And
it's a great book. Yeah. I mean, especially if you're a fan, I feel like you have to read that. Is it available on Audible book though, or no?
No, the publisher screwed that one up. It is not an audiobook.
Because that's
how I had an offer.
Yeah, that's usually how I listen. It's so easy because it's just like listening to a podcast, and I can even do it double speed. And it's like, but yeah, that one I remember I had to read old school way, and I was like, it took a few days, but yeah, there was so much information. It was real. And again, I'm not a huge David Lee Roth fan, but Adik, I'm back. What did I miss? I'm not a huge David Lee Roth fan, but I'm enough that it was interesting, and especially with the tie-ins, like with other people. And I'm trying to remember, was this in the books? This is interesting. This is what my dad would call synchronicity. But so I got sick a few days ago, and I started binging The Sopranos. So and then I'm not sick anymore, but I'm just continuing. So I'm like, I forget like how all this stuff happens. And literally today was the episode that David Lee Roth was in. And I was like, I don't remember he was in an episode. And he's sitting there it's David Lee Roth playing poker like 2 hours before I'm supposed to go on this interview with you. I was like, that's crazy timing that one just happened to coincide with where I'm going to talk to you. So do you remember that? I don't know if that was in your book.
I think I mentioned it in passing about how he kept busy with some acting roles here and there, but was that was the poker game in the back of the Bada Bing Club?
Yeah, I think so.
Is Frankie Valli in that game? Wasn't Frankie Valli an actor on The Sopranos?
Yeah, I think it's Frankie Valli, and I think Frank Sinatra Jr. is in some of them. And then for some reason, I don't even think he had any lines, but I recognized him, and I had to look it up. I was like, wait, I know that guy. Who is that? It's Lawrence Taylor, the New York Giants player. Is in that too. I didn't remember that, and it was weird. Like, I don't think he had any lines, but they showed his face, and I was like, I recognize him, and then but I hadn't seen him in so long because I think he got canceled for. It's a whole other topic, but it was Lawrence Taylor. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, they had some pretty good cameos on that show, and then we were watching the other night, and they're like, one of AJ's friends, like my girlfriend's like, he looks familiar, and I was like, yeah, he does. Let me look, and I looked it up. It was Paul Dano. It was one of his first roles, like before There Will Be Blood and all that, and like that guy's one of my favorite.
Sunshine era Paul Dano, the Bieber haircut. Paul Dano. Yeah,
he almost looks like that Adam Lanza, the school shooter. He had that kind of bowl cut. It was like, it's kind of creepy.
I think that The Sopranos, it's kind of hit or miss. Like towards the end, there was a lot. What about Roth? There's Adika being Adika. No comment. Allegedly, I don't want to go to court anymore. But with The Sopranos, a lot of it was filmed around here on Long Island. Everyone thinks of it as a Jersey show, but the train shop was 2 towns over from here. Some of the beach club stuff was from around here. And it's kind of weird where when the show ended, I think it was 06, 07, that was before really the rise of social media. So imagine how the show would have been received had it been a social media era show. I think it would have been a totally different legacy.
What do you like? I mean, it was already so popular. You think it would have been more popular or
less? Less, because I think that
because everyone would be canceled. Like,
I don't know about canceled, but the idea of the mob movie or the mob drama has really evolved so much that when Darren goes, a different kind of truth, as Van Halen would say, Adika. But have you watched, for example, my wife and I are watching the 2nd season of The Tulsa King with Stallone. Are you watching that at all?
No, I've heard that's good. Is it good? Should I watch that?
I watch every episode going, I don't know if this is terrible, hilarious, or good or really terrible. I can't tell.
Oh, that's not a very good sell.
But the way that Stallone's this mobster that, kicks everyone's ass, even though he's 75, and he gets younger women, and he always has a quip. He always has a David Caruso kind of one-liner. I think that the mob comedy has really evolved.
Yeah, what was the line the other day we were watching, and Adriana was saying to Christopher, she goes, "Christopher, I got a tear in my uterus," and he goes, "Both of them?" And she's like, "There's only one." I mean, I forgot about some of those lines, and there was there was one that I don't think I caught this the first time, but the son is like learning about philosophy or something, and he goes,
Sure.
and he's talking about the philosopher, and he goes, "Yeah, it's that philosopher Nietzsche." And I had to send it to my dad because I bet most people didn't get that. It's pronounced Nietzsche, not Nietzsche. But there's a lot of those kind of like, you're right. It's like they're kind of making fun of how dumb some of those people are.
It was like the Showgirls line about it's Versace, instead of Versace.
Oh, I don't remember that. I haven't seen that movie. And I remember going to that movie when I was 17. It was NC-17. Yes. And I was so excited. We had to like show our ID or whatever. And we're like, all right, we're going to Showgirls. And like, I mean, that was like back before internet porn. So like seeing a boob was like, especially on a giant movie screen, that was a big deal when you're 17. So it was exciting.
It's a good cast. The writer and director were legit. I think the press unfairly murdered that movie because it was Joe Esterhaus who did Basic Instinct and I think Fatal Attraction, all that. And
wasn't
Gina
it
Gershon, Kyle MacLachlan.
Paul Verhoeven, yeah. What's his name? The guy that did RoboCop and Total Recall, all those great movies.
Yeah, so I think it's Esterhaus wrote it, and then Paul Verhoeven directed it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it when I was 17. I can't say that if I watched it now, I might go, yeah, this is terrible. But I mean, when you're 17, I mean, the whole premise of the thing is it's about strippers. So, but I mean, it's also interesting to kind of see, it's probably accurate in terms of the showgirl world or what it was like behind the scenes.
That, and it's an unglamorous look at Vegas. Most things are like The Hangover, where they try and glorify Vegas, and It was an alternate take. Maybe it was Vegas lobbyists trying to kill that movie.
What about Leaving Las Vegas, though? That is not a glamorous look at Vegas. Or drinking.
No, amazing acting in that one. Very sad movie. That's
so depressing.
That goes
some of the clips. If you take the clips out of context, like I think it's at the beginning of the movie where he's shopping and he's just grabbing stuff off the at the liquor store, and it's like he's all happy and dancing. And it's like if you saw that clip, you'd be like, "Oh, this movie looks so fun," and like then you don't realize like how dark it goes.
Yeah, it goes back to the opposite of what we were talking about earlier about me getting the free booze. And at first you're a kid in the candy store, and then you do that enough days and you kind of realize you're the sad person at the bar. You're the person who repeats stories. You never want to be the story repeater.
No. Yeah. No, it's funny. I was just talking about that with my girlfriend. We were at this bar. We just stopped in really quick just to have a quick drink. And there was this guy there and you could tell like he's the regular that just sits there and just talks your ear off. And you're like, okay, like we got to get going. Like we didn't really want to talk to you for that. We're like, we're going to go to a different bar because we don't want to like be stuck with this. Yeah. You don't want to be the regular that talks the ear off of strangers. I think that's the worst. I hope I never turn out to be that guy.
Unless your stories are awesome.
Well, yeah, if you're having good conversation with a person and they're interested, but if you're like talking their ear off and they're going, and they're trying to like get away from you.
Yeah. I think it depends also on your entry into the conversation. So for example, if let's say you order a beer from the local brewery that's cool that you support, even though the beer is terrible. My area has plenty of those where the beer is not that great, but you want to feel like you're supporting a local business, even though they don't do anything for you. Anyway, you order that beer and then the person then goes along the lines of, "Oh, I know that beer. My brother-in-law goes there." And you go, "I didn't ask about your brother-in-law. And now we're going to have to hear about the brother-in-law in the concert he went to last night. I didn't ask."
Right.
No.
Yeah. That's the thing. When people just kind of insert themselves into the conversation and then you can't like get out of it. You're like, how do I like, you just literally have to like finish your drink and then go, "Well, we're leaving. Goodbye." Like, And then usually they don't follow you. They'll just talk off the ear of the next person that sits next to them.
Right. They have a cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be the same stories over that they're telling.
Yeah, I think one of the most cardinal sins that people regularly pull is repeating stories, especially in the same night.
Yeah.
When you realize that point in your friendship with a friend that they've run out of stories, that's a problem.
Well, yeah, and if you notice, like Adika and I always talk about this, how a lot of the guests that we have on, if you listen to other interviews, they'll tell the same stories. And so, like, I'll do my research for a lot of guests, and I'll go, okay,
yeah,
I've heard this story like 7 times in 7 different. I'm like, I'm going to try to not get them to talk about that, but then sometimes they'll find a way to insert that story into your interview, even though you didn't ask them about that. You know, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, to drive your point home, when I interviewed David Lee Roth in 03, he gave all these answers that were super amusing. And I was writing for a monthly publication. So 2 or 3 weeks later, I saw an interview he did with, I think, Newsday, which is a daily out here. And he gave the same answers to different questions. And then I saw another interview that he did with a bi-weekly out here called Good Times. And he gave the same answers to different questions again. And you realize, oh, so the way that he writes a set list, he probably writes his interviews.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's just how it's like a job for them. They got their material they just do their material. And maybe it's like, maybe he has memory things where it's like, that's all he can remember. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing with a lot of our favorite artists, where who they are in their head has nothing to do with who they are physically. So when, I don't know, Vince Neil probably does not realize who and what he is because
he
the
doesn't
people
do
around
interviews
him.
anymore. I haven't seen him do an interview in a long time. Well, I guess there was one when they had that new song, him and Nikki did like some radio show or something, but he didn't say much. He kind of just was there.
Yeah, they're letting John 5 do more of the talking, I'm seeing. And I think I'm thinking of the same one that you are, where it was the 4 of them in a room with somebody, including John 5.
Yeah, probably. Or yeah, I mean, I saw a couple because I was trying to get one of those guys, and I felt like, dude, I could do a really good interview with these guys because I know I've read the books, I've seen the movies, I've listened to every album. I know Nicky's solo stuff, like his weird, like 1958 band, or like the freaking the one with the Tracy Guns, the Brides of Destruction. Like I know all those songs, and like I'm like probably the biggest fan. So I don't know if that would be annoying for people, but I feel like it would be a fun interview. It would be something new rather than just the same old like regurgitated questions and answers. And yeah, but oh well, I'm just not big enough. I guess I can't get there. You had Tommy Lee on, which I thought was really cool.
Thank you. And how I got Tommy Lee, is that he had a solo record that nobody cared about. And
I would care about that. Yeah.
You would not have liked this solo album.
Which one was it?
Andro.
Okay, I don't even think now. I think lost touch on some of this stuff, but back in the day, like I mean, not just in the 80s. I'm saying like more so in the 90s and early 2000s when I was a really bigger into music. Yeah, because I remember his first couple. What was the one like Tommyland? That actually, back to our friend Butch Walker was on there. Did a song on that. Yeah, there was some cool stuff, cool guest appearances, and I think he had some help enough that it was like, I'm sure Tommy is not like a musical genius or anything, but like he had enough like good supporting cast that it was a decent album.
He's a curator. He seems to be cool with everybody at some point in time, but unfortunately, this album he decided to do more of an electro. Thing that wasn't super melodic. I think he likes energy and beats more than he does melodies.
Sure.
So
yeah, because I thought he kind of like got sick of Motley Crue he left and he wanted to do all that shit.
Totally.
But then I think he realized, well, I can make a lot of money in Motley Crue. So
I think a lot of our favorite artists, we believe that they're loaded beyond belief, but the reality is they bought a house that was too expensive. They spent way too much on tour, and they didn't come home netting as much as we think. And that's why the tours keep going and going and going.
I'm curious. Yeah. I wonder, I mean, you assume that if you do the math with like, especially with Motley Crue, you're like, I mean, they would have to be really bad with money to not just be set for life based on how many. I mean, just the 80s period alone, I feel like they could have been set for life, but then now they've done so much since then. And then they got their back catalog and all. I mean, they should have plenty of money, but yeah, I don't know. I guess if you're just really bad with money. And
They do, but Vince has at least 4 divorces. Nikki has 3 or 4. And when I worked at Viacom doing music clearances for MTV or VH1, one of my coworkers told me that particular parts of the catalog, I think one of the ex-wives, I think Brandy Roderick. I'm waiting for Adika to go. Brandy Roderick. He'll know the name of the person. She allegedly has 50% of the proceeds. So they have to quote so high on everything because she's getting such a large chunk of it.
wow, she must have a good lawyer. That's amazing.
Yeah, but then she was, Adika said Brandy.
Yeah,
Yes.
same brand. So
For some reason, I remember that, and I don't remember anyone's birthday. I don't know how, but I think that Nikki has 3 or 4 divorces. Tommy has 3 or 4. Vince has 4 at least.
do they have to pay alimony on those divorces, or is it just child support? Or you'd think they would get like a what do you call that thing? What do you call it? Where you make an agreement where you each keep your own money. The
mediator kind of. I
no,
don't know.
the prenuptial agreement. You'd think that they would get those things. Like, I mean, at least after the first or second, you'd go, okay, the next ones, I think I should get the prenup just to be safe.
Yeah, it's a mess, and that's why I assume that most of them are still on the road because they need more. I mean, even Jim Carrey's been doing interviews where he admitted that he spoke too soon about retiring after Sonic the Hedgehog 2. They said, why'd you do Sonic the Hedgehog 3? And he went, I needed the money. And you go, you've been making $20 million a movie since Dumb and Dumber. How do you need the money? Where did it go?
Yeah, that's always so interesting too, because he's so philosophical about, like, life is just about life and shouldn't be about material things and all this. But give me $20 million for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. It's really important to me. Like, it's like, wait, I thought you just cared about love and that was the only thing that mattered. And yeah, those guys are kind of interesting that way.
Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of our favorite artists do the farewell tour, which turns out to be a fake out farewell tour. And
Do you think it's a purposeful fake out though, or do you think that they really think like, yeah, we're going to retire, and then they just miss it and they come back?
My experience with artists is from working in the artist management end is to never take anything that they say particularly seriously if it's about long-term planning. If they said, this is the best thing I've ever read and this is the best album I've ever done, you when you're a young person, you go, oh, really? Oh, I got to listen to this. And now as you get older, you go, oh, yeah, great. I'm psyched. Yeah, it must be great.
Well, of course they're going to say that about their most current thing because they're trying to promote it, right?
Every album Sammy Hagar does is the best album he's ever done.
Right. But maybe he does feel that way legitimately at the time. And then he looks back and goes, maybe, at the time I thought that was the best, but now I think this one's the best because that's the most exciting is the new one, right?
It's the most exciting. So I think that a lot of these people go, if I announce it as the farewell tour, it's exciting. Yeah. I'm going out on a high note. And then they get the financial projections and they go, oh, maybe I can take a year or 2 off, but this is not the end. And now we got another divorce coming. a lot of our favorite artists are not cut out for just being home very much.
Yeah. Is there anyone that has legitimately retired and didn't come back that said this was the farewell tour and not counting the people that like died or something, because that doesn't count?
This Aerosmith one was an accidental farewell tour that they didn't count on. Anyone else that's done a real farewell tour?
I mean, I guess so far Kiss has kept their word, right? They haven't reunited yet. They'll be back though, right?
No, Gene's doing a solo tour that he's just announced dates for.
Yeah, I tried to get Gene on my show too. I was talking to his publicist and he goes, okay, I'll try to let him, I'll ask him. And he said, do you have like an interview that you want to send for him to watch. And I sent him an interview and my trailer and all, and you know, and never heard anything ever again.
Is that
so.
Terry?
I think so. I'd have to double check. I don't
Terry
remember.
is a lady. Terry is Terry is a very, very tough job because Gene is easy, which Adika will tell you. Gene, you grow up thinking that he's this mean guy, but then you kind of realize it's a wrestling heel persona, and he becomes Uncle Gene when he kind of feels that you're not out to get him, and that he has nothing to prove in any way because you've already said how much you respected him. He doesn't try to get you anymore. But Terry, through her, I interviewed Gene 2 or 3 times, and then 6 months ago they said, "Do you want to interview Gene?" I said, "Sure." And then I didn't hear anything. I followed up, "Hey, anything?" Nothing. And I followed up again, "Hey, anything?" "He's busy." Well, why did you offer it? So what I'm getting at is so many publicists these days, just like job interviews, they offer more slots than they actually have the time allotted for, which ruins everything for everyone, I think.
Yeah, I think, and it's weird because the most annoying thing is like when you work so hard and you get to a spot and then someone who has less subscribers and less experience gets a bigger guest that you've been trying to get. Because, and I think it's all, and I don't think it's because the publicist goes, you know, I like this guy's stuff better. No, the publicist goes, I need somebody right now. And they just happen to message me. Okay, you're in, you got this spot. And I've been the beneficiary of that sometimes too. Sometimes I think that's how I got Ted Nugent the first time, was someone had canceled and they just said, I kept asking for him. And then I just happened to ask at the right time. They said, we got a cancellation. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yes, I want to do it. And he's a wild man. That was a fun one. But yeah, some of those big guests I've gotten have just been luck. And then some other people have gotten luck too. So it happens.
I think that the longer you do this, and you definitely know this for sure, that you're simultaneously A-list, B-list, C-list, and Z-list, depending on who or what it is. So there's certain publicists who go, oh, Chuck is a nice guy. He asks great questions. He posts it quickly. He would never burn me. And then there's other publicists that go, how many followers? No.
Right.
You never know.
And I think that second one is becoming more common because I think there's so many podcasts now, and it's just, everybody's got a podcast. So like, are you going to give it to, you know, me, who's like nobody, who's a no name, or are you going to give it to the guy that was the star of Cheers, or Bill O'Reilly? Because I just saw, I think Gene Simmons just did Bill O'Reilly. It had like 300,000 views. I don't follow Bill O'Reilly, but somehow that showed up in my news feed on YouTube. And I was like, oh, okay, well, he turned me down, but he did Bill O'Reilly and it got 300,000 views. So I think that there's a lot of, it's just so hard to compete now. And that's what I'm realizing. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I still want to do this stuff, but I think I'm going to dial it back in 2025 and work on other stuff, focus on other things, and try to bring my name up in other ways. And then hopefully bring it back to the podcast. Cause just asking publicists and hounding, like, I just feel like I can't get anywhere.
What you just said, I've been there a lot of times, lot of times. When I have a really bad interview experience, I had the worst interview experience I've ever had probably 3 weeks ago. And that day that happened, I went,
did you post it? I want to watch it. Which one was it?
I'm deciding if I'm going to put up clips from it. It's a wrestler from AEW named Darby Allin. And that guy is such an unpleasant human being that I find that the wrestling bad guys in real life are generally the nicest, most patient people. And then the good guys are just such prima donnas. And his whole image is like, I'm punk rock, because he took his name from Gigi Allen and Darby Crash from the Germs. And
wait, what is his name? Darby? What is it?
Darby Allin.
Darby
Allin.
I'll have to ask my brother. He's a big wrestling. I don't know if he knows AEW. That's different than WWE, though.
Yeah, it's the number 2 company that the Jacksonville Jaguars family owns.
Oh, okay. I think my brother was telling me about that.
And so he's been a champion and he's headlining things. And it was such a bad experience. I was going like, why do I do this? And the publicist who's on the line with me went like, you did nothing wrong. I've never seen that before. hold on, let me find out what to do. And then I didn't hear anything for a couple of days, and I wrote to his manager and went, is he okay? And the manager, should we reschedule? And the manager goes, we will not be proceeding with another interview at this time. Best wishes. And I went, okay. So his issue is with me, Chuck. He said that I was asking Hollywood questions and I should just talk to him. So I'd ask him questions and he'd go, I don't want to answer that. It was the worst thing. And I was going, why am I doing this?
It was yeah. Well, so what's an example of a Hollywood question?
His handler gave me a list of talking points that basically said, I want you to ask him these things.
Okay.
Just work him into the conversation. So I asked questions that organically incorporated that. And he goes,
sure.
After the second question, he goes, why does it sound like my publicist wrote these questions? And she chimes in and goes, Darby, I did give him some of these talking points. It's like, oh, well, that's not what I want to do. And so I was asking him about his wrestling style is very violent. Like he takes a lot of high risk kinds of things that run the risk of concussions or hurting himself. Yet his business strategy is very calculated at the same time, in that he has all these different brands going in celebrity partnerships and is accessible. So in other words, you have this guy who's reckless in the ring, yet calculated in the business sense.
Yeah, that is interesting. And that was totally
Chuck, Hollywood.
She wanted you to ask? Hollywood,
Hollywood. When you look at me, you think of Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, that stuff is it's so weird to me. Like, why Adika says you should post it. I agree. I think you should. I posted my Misfits one. That guy was a total jerk to me. I read
Doyle? Doyle?
Yeah, I think you did a print interview with him, right? Because I read it. It was a print one, right?
I did one in person and one by phone. And
okay, because I read something. I think it was a print interview, right? You can read the transcript of it somewhere. I read it and like I could tell like he was getting mad at you or something. Like you said, you were asking him about the Misfits reunion, and he's like, "You're not supposed to ask about that."
Yeah, when Doyle, when you're interviewing Doyle, his handler, or at least his handler for those years, would go, "You're not allowed to ask about X, Y, and Z. And if you ask any question that can be answered with a yes or a no, that's what he's going to answer with."
Yeah.
And at first you go, man, that guy's difficult. And then you kind of realize, no, he's playing a wrestling bad guy. The Misfits were legitimately wrestlers. They were in WCW as wrestlers. So he plays up being this difficult guy, but at the end of the day, he's this Jersey Guido, engaged or married to a vegan, and he loves animals. So Jerry Only, I had one of the nicest fan experiences I've ever had with his brother, Jerry Only. So I just think it's persona.
Yeah, well, Doyle was only a jerk to me, so I don't know. I didn't care for him too much, but yeah, I mean, I know it's like, I've heard that's like part of his, it's like an act or something. And I'm just like, well, then why even do it's my fault too. Cause I was cocky and I was like, I can win him over. I can get him to like loosen up. Cause I did hear a couple interviews where he was like nicer, but usually that's the bigger interviewer. I can't remember if it was Eddie Trunk or it was some bigger show. And he kind of was like, yeah, hey, he was all smiley and nice. And
really?
I was like, yeah, I mean, not like all the way, but like way better than like the guys like me that were he just shit all over. And it's funny because I was listening in on the interview right before me, and he's being such a dick to that guy. And he's like, I don't know, bro, or something like that. And I was like, oh, this guy's not doing too well. And then I didn't do too well either.
The first time I interviewed him was in person after a gig at this club that holds 200-300 people in New York City. And I guess they booked 5 to 10 people to interview him. And they're like, wait here. And so you watched each interviewer go in and then come out a couple of minutes later, like,
it's like Gladiator. It's like watching the Gladiator when he watches him go out there and then he's got to go out and fight the people and stuff. Yeah.
But not only that, they didn't clear the dressing room. So it was me, my wife, who I guess took a photo or was hanging out. this guy, Jimmy, I forget his name. He owned this clothing store called Search and Destroy in New York City. He died a couple of years ago. It was 4 or 5 people in the dressing room, and he just wanted to hang out with his friends, and they gave him back to back interviews.
Well, that's the thing too. I feel like just tell your publicist you're not doing interviews if you don't want to do interviews. But I think he likes being a dick. I think it's fun for him.
I think so too. He punches his guitar on stage. That's part of the Doyle gimmick. And there's TBC. That is T-Bone. T-Bone is a great podcaster in his own right. T-Bone used to work with Hall & Oates and Steve Cropper with the Blues Brothers and all that kind of stuff. He's legit.
That's cool. Wait, you guys are buddies?
Yeah. He's had me on his show. I've been reading and following his stuff as well. Nice human being.
That's good. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, that's what I mean. Most of the people I come across in this business are like really nice. Like it's amazing that because I used to work in education. I always talk about how people in education, you think it'd be the opposite. People in a helping field would be very like helping and loving and caring. And then no, like half of those people are jerks and they hate kids. And you're just like, why are you doing this? And then you go into entertainment. And most people are happy because they're doing something they love. Like they wouldn't be in this business. Usually not in it for the money. They're usually in it because they love music or entertainment or whatever. And so, yeah, there's a few people that are the people that are mad are the people that think they should be bigger than they are. And so they're kind of bitter or whatever.
I find the bigger the star, usually the nicer they are because they don't have anything to prove. Now, how their handler handles them is a different story. That could be the nightmare of the whole thing. They'll give you all these limitations, like don't ask this, don't do this, don't do that. And then you find that the person actually brings up all those topics that you were told not to ask about. That happens to me so often.
You're right. That happens too. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think, or like I'll kind of say to or they'll say, oh, I don't want to talk about that. And then they'll proceed to talk about it. That happens a lot too. Like, well, I really don't want to get into that. I mean, the thing is with that is blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, but you just said you didn't want to get into it. Then you just got into it. It's like, and then that's when you just sit back and go, okay, go ahead. Like, don't get into it, but keep going with that, not getting into it. Cause I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. So back to you with the interviews where you can feel Dika needs a handler. Hey, I'm an Indika guy personally. What can I say? But I think with you, Chuck, it can be really easy to feel defeated because you look at other people's numbers or the guests that other people get. And when you see that, you go, I'm giving up. Or you see the revenue or the call her daddy getting $100 million deal with Sirius XM and Harry and Meghan. And then you go like, what am I doing? Why am I even doing this? But I think that when you break things down a bit, first, when it comes to bigger names, you do get them. They come least expectedly. But for example, if you want Def Leppard, you're not going to get Def Leppard. But just wait, and Rick Allen is going to do a project that people don't necessarily want to talk about, and you'll get him there. Phil Collin will produce a Tesla album and want to do press, and you'll get him there, or Delta Deep. Joe Elliott will do his Diamond Dogs, whatever his glam tribute is. You'll get him there. Tommy Lee has a soul album. We were talking about that. You'll get him on that. You'll get Mick Mars when he does his Guitar Zeus with Carmine Appice.
I couldn't get Mick Mars or Ace Frehley, and everybody else, not everybody else, but a lot of people got them. And the Mick Mars one really bothered me because for whatever reason, I don't understand it. And no diss on the publicist because I don't know the strategy here, but for whatever reason, he was doing a lot of very low key podcasts. Like people with like 50 subscribers or like 500 subscribers on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe they had a radio connection or maybe there was some other connection.
Yeah.
That's why, but he kept doing these small time podcasts. And I was like, dude, I got like 6 times as many, 6 or 10 times more subscribers. Why can't I? And they're like, sorry, he's not available. It's, you didn't make the cut or whatever. And so that one pissed me. Adika got both Mick and Ace. And I was jealous of that. And that's when I knew I was like, dude, something's wrong here.
Let me ruin all of Adika's accomplishments right there because hey, Adika
got Gene too, and you have had Gene as well. I know.
I had Gene both times because he was shilling his soda with that Niagara Falls company, and the publicist wanted that kind of coverage. Like
but
the first time
you even ask him about Kiss stuff, or is it like, we're not talking about Kiss. We're here to
I
talk
totally
about
asked him about Kiss stuff, obscure stuff, and he kept going, what else? What else? What else? What else? And I was trying to end the interview, and he's like, no, what else? I wound up hanging out with him, and that's why I love Gene. But
that seems like a nice guy.
I wouldn't say he's a nice guy. I would just say for a superstar, he's very down to earth, if that makes sense.
I mean, from what I can tell, he doesn't. Yeah, he plays kind of like the serious guy, and then I think he kind of is serious because he doesn't laugh and smile a lot even in interviews. But he's also like very kind. I can tell, like I've listened to, I think, Adika's interviews with him and other people where, you know, like you said, if you're nice to him, he'll be nice back to you. And like he shared Adika's stuff out, and like I think that's really cool. Like just the fact that he wouldn't even do Adika's show, he didn't have to do that. It doesn't help him out, but I know that there's a connection there with the drummer and stuff. And I mean, he's being a nice guy. And I think, I mean, to me, that would be the advantage of being that big, whether it's like famous or rich or whatever, like, is that you could help so many other people. Like I try to help as many people as I can at my level. And you also, shout out to you, because you have helped me so much with so many guests and like advice and things like, and I really appreciate that. Like, and that's what's so cool about like the podcast world. That's why I'm having a lot of podcasters on for this this holiday stream thing, because it's like I like talking with you guys. I like you, Clint Schweitzer, Adika, like you guys have been so nice to me, and I appreciate that.
We like you back, but let me just finish a point with Ace, because I've done 3 Ace interviews.
Yeah,
and the first
I heard the interviews aren't that great with not saying yours. I'm saying Ace as a guest isn't that great.
I had to edit the 3rd interview, the most recent one, so heavily because he said things that would have gotten him sued big time.
Oh,
and then,
really?
Yeah, he said things that would have made him look really bad. And I don't think that he's a bad guy. I think he's just tired of doing interviews. If you go up to Ace and go, I love your music, you're why I played guitar, he doesn't go, oh my God, thank you. He goes, yeah, I hear that a lot. Like that kind of a thing. And
because like what would you, if you heard that so many times a day, it's got to lose meaning at some point, right?
Yeah, I think he's very blunt about that. People have heard him say that, like, yeah, I hear that a lot. Where's the bar? Or, you know, I'm not saying where's the bar for drinking, but, you know, just that's nice that you say that. Now, let me focus on what I'm actually interested about. You know, Ace is super interested in animation and computer programming of all things.
Really?
And he's got a new record in the works. I think he has Origins Volume 3. So if you start planning, knowing that it's coming out on E1, and you start building up your E1 connections, you take 1 or 2 interviews for E1 that nobody else is doing. Like do them a favor or two, and then you cash in your chips when Ace has his press day.
See, but I'm so sick of doing that shit. See that, and I will say, with that strategy, you have taken that strategy to the moon. You have done that strategy better than anyone else I know. But for me, I just feel like I need something bigger. I need a bigger in on this whole thing. And that's what my plan is for 2025. I'm not ready to reveal that, but I'm trying a bigger angle with all this shit. And if I ever make it, I get big enough where I can get big guests, I'm going to try to help you and Adika and all these Clint Schweitzers and all these people that help me. I will try to pay you back as much as I possibly can, because
not needed at all.
Yeah, but I like doing that. I know it's not needed, but I want to. It actually brings me joy to like help somebody else. Like when people reach out to me, they're like, "Oh, how did you get this guest?" And I'm like, "Well, here, I'll give you the contact." Like I'm usually pretty open about those things, because especially, I mean, if it's not somebody that I feel like they work hard and they really want this guest, but they don't have the contact. It's like, okay, you know, it's one thing if someone just started or something, and then I'm like, you know, you got to pay your dues a little. But if it's somebody that's, you know, they've worked hard and it's like this one person and they're not hounding me all the time, I'm like, I usually try to throw them a bone, you know?
I think that another strategy that a lot of podcasters don't employ, but should, is having Deke has no patience.
That's what I'm
needs a little patience.
Too. Yeah. I mean, it's been 5 years. I thought I would be Joe Rogan by now. What the fuck?
I think that one of the things that a lot of our peers don't have readily available that I do is a copy and paste pitch, a few versions of that have your bullet points of what you've done, what you can do, where your stuff runs, any numbers to break it up in a quick, easy to read kind of thing. And first, you have to have those dumbed down bullet points in general, because most people don't read. They don't read anything that's more than 5 sentences or more than 2 paragraphs long. They don't read blocks of text. They need bullet points. They do not read books. Trust me, when you do a book tour, you just have to have these bullet points ready to go. Here's more about me. But if you give it in paragraphs, they can't read it. So you have to have that. Then another thing that our peers don't usually do is make sure they have a listing on Cision, Cision, Cision. And it's basically the central lazy database that a lot of agencies and Cision,
okay,
they subscribe to, and they pay either a monthly fee or a per press release circulation, and they just check a couple of boxes, and everything within those demographics or those interest levels goes out to those people. Now, whether or not they respond to you is a different thing, but it goes out to everyone at once within those things. And making sure that you have a listing and it has favorable information about yourself, that might then populate in Muckrack, that might populate in different press databases. So if you create your own footprint to say, here's what I do, here's the finer points about me, over time it gets regurgitated. It's almost like the Donald Trump style, like if you say things enough times, it's the truth. It's kind of like that. If you say these things enough times, then that factors into Chat GPT.
It's the greatest podcast. It's the greatest podcast in the history. Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, like, ultimately, like, how are you going to get to that? Like, see, my goal is 100K, right? That sounds crazy. And I didn't reach it this year. I didn't even come close, but I still want to get to 100K YouTube subscribers. And I just don't know with that strategy. It's like, I just feel like I've paid my dues already. I need a different angle that's going to come in where I have the power. What is it like you're a Seinfeld fan, right? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Like, remember the one where George is like, I have no hand. I had hand in his, and you're going to need it. You know, like I have no hand in this. Like the publicists have all the power and they can just like, there's a couple of publicists that used to, well, but there's a couple of publicists, and I won't call them out. And I don't know if this is even what's happening, but like I've reached out about a couple of interviews and they've usually would reply right away, and they've just completely ghosted me. And I don't know if that's because of the holidays or
chat a name to me, and I'll tell you if it's you or it's them, and I won't say what their name is.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you off air, but yeah, it's just, and then I thought like, oh, was it something I posted? Like maybe I posted something that was politically incorrect or too controversial. And then I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Because you see these people too, and they're like, I saw a lot of these posts about a month ago. Like, if you voted for this person, unfriend me and don't follow me and get the fuck out of my life. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I was like, I didn't vote. How about that? I don't, because of either way, you're going to piss half the people off. Right. So you got to keep that under the vest. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, if it's just like, you could say like this band sucks or this thing sucks, or I don't like this, or I don't, if it's anything somewhat negative, I mean, they could take offense to, or even if it's something positive, maybe they take offense. I mean, you never know what you're going to do or say that's going to piss somebody off. And then, I mean, they have the power that if they don't like you, they could just go, no, I'm not going to respond to them. They're not going to get any of my guests that I have. I mean, right. I mean, they could potentially do that. I'm guessing most of them don't care enough to do that, but if they wanted to be petty, they could.
Sometimes that happens. I think sometimes also they bought a new database and updated their database, and your metrics weren't in that Cision thing or PR Newswire or one of those. That's another thing that can happen. But with my multi-approach kind of situation, do you like the show Cobra Kai? Do you love it? Indifferent?
Cobra Kai?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first, definitely the first season was probably one of the best seasons of any show in the history of shows. The second season, it started to fall off a little bit. And then I think it was like the last couple seasons, I mean, I felt like it was just going through the motions for me. It just was a little too cheesy, but I did love it. Yeah.
Because I wouldn't say I'm dead to Netflix, but Netflix has always ignored me. They don't take any of my pitches. They've never.
They don't take any of my pitches either. They don't. I don't even know I have their number or email.
but I've interviewed half the cast of Cobra Kai probably at this point.
Have
Because,
you?
yeah, Zapka was the first one I did.
You had Johnny Lawrence on the show?
Way back pre-Zoom,
Okay.
when it was a YouTube show and not a Netflix show, and no one liked Cobra Kai yet.
That's when I first started watching it. It was on YouTube Red, and my friend told me about it, and I was like, and I think, oh, you know what it was? Because I think they gave the first 1 or 2 or 3 episodes for free. And so I thought, okay, he's raving about this. I guess I'll watch. And I watch it and I go, oh my God, I'm hooked. Okay, I'll buy YouTube Red. It was like $10 a month. And also the cool thing about YouTube Red, or now YouTube Premium, whatever they call it, is you can watch every YouTube video, including our podcasts, and no commercials. So that's kind of nice. Because your podcast is monetized, right?
It was until about 40 days ago when I got a copyright strike and then a demonetization notice.
Oh, no. For what?
I think there's 2 possibilities. One, it's the Alex Van Halen thing that I posted that his book publisher's digital arm struck. And the other thing is that I posted a short of Trump and Vince McMahon that went viral, like big time viral.
Oh.
And that was around the time of the election. And YouTube isn't a big Trump fan. And my video wasn't saying I liked Trump or I voted for Trump. It was just hey, you remember that time Trump and Vince McMahon did that? So then I posted a few more other Trump cameo things, and that started to do well, and then I got demonetized. What are the odds?
Yeah, that's weird how that's what I'm saying. Like those kinds of things that you just got to be careful with that stuff. And yeah, no, that's too bad. So you can't, and then you can't get it remonetized. There's no way to appeal or anything, or just demonetized forever.
They gave an appeal instructions list, and it was like, do a 5-minute video that has this. It's like, show the URL, show the copyright notice, show how you make a video, show how it's original, include your voice, include this visual. It was like a scavenger hunt. And I submitted that, and I don't think they watched it. And I called them out on Twitter over that, or X. They said, we've elevated it. And no, they didn't. And then I found a dedicated account manager, and she's like, yeah, we're looking into it, and nothing. So I think I just have to reapply in about 50 days. Okay. And then hopefully my Alex copyright strike is gone then. I also got a bogus copyright strike like 6 weeks before that. I posted an Aerosmith Woodstock 94 clip, and this woman flashes the camera for a second, and my video was of a sexual nature. And they gave me a strike.
But don't they usually find that shit before you post it? Because I know mine always goes through the thing, and they say like, are you sure you want to publish it before it goes through the processing or whatever? And then the processing, they'll tell you if anything. Because one time I did some interview, and I showed a clip of I think it was when I had DMC on. And so I showed a clip of the Run DMC, no audio, just the video where we were talking about it. So I was trying to show the video of what I was talking about in the video. And I showed the clip of like 5 seconds, and they said, you can't show that. And like, this video is not approved or whatever. So then I had to take the video down, take that part out, then re-upload it. And then it worked fine. So like, usually I thought they catch that before they allow you to even post it.
I took this exact video from existing YouTube videos, which were broadcast on Japanese television, and cut a clip from it. So in other words,
isn't that fair use? I thought it was fair. If you're talking about it or in context, then it's fair use. I thought that was how I understood that. I don't know.
YouTube has different rules for different people. And it was a lesson to learn, because it was a shame, because I was making decent money from it. And the shorts are what tripled my subscriber base in the matter of months.
Sure, yeah, the shorts
I think I had like 5,100 subscribers as of April. And then, as of today, I'm at like 13,000 something. Anyway, because of shorts.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was shorts, not shorts from your interview, just random shorts of different things. And
a mix of things, a mix of originals, supercuts, and interview clips. And I'm Danger Rock. I try, and my name is Mud.
He keeps asking about the Roth gay thing. So.
Adika, I'll sort of answer it like this. Dave wants to forever be thought of as a ladies' man. And so every publicity photo, he has, a lady on this side and a lady on this side, or triplets or whatever. And there's a few girlfriends he's talked about over the years, but the man never married. Different people said he's asexual.
I think it's weird. I had Desmond Child on, who's a big, songwriter with Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and all that. And Desmond Child is gay, but he came to meet with David Lee Roth, and David Lee Roth said, or Desmond Child said that David Lee Roth came with these strippers, and like he was trying to impress Desmond Child, and Desmond Child's like, I'm gay. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not, it's like, so that is kind of like strange. Like, yeah, I feel like he's almost like overcompensating for something.
Yeah, Dave is all about putting on a show. For better and for worse, he's all about putting on a show, but he's been doing that character so long that the lines kind of got blurry. But the real...
You also wonder too, maybe he has slept with a lot of women, and maybe it just got boring for him. Maybe he's like, okay, like if you fucked like every girl that you could fuck, and then you're like, okay. I mean, because I heard the same thing about Hugh Hefner, that this is guy is sleeping with the most beautiful women, and after a while you get bored with that, and you're like, and so like he watched gay porn or something, like supposedly. I think that was in that E! documentary. Allegedly.
With Dave, he's, to his credit, he's a very challenge-oriented person. He's always trying to learn new things, push the ball forward. So I can't imagine he's very vanilla about what he's trying to do or conquer. And he's not known to have friends. He's kind of like Gene Simmons. He's not very... It's not like Dave is going to go, hey, do you want to come over and watch the game? That's not Dave. Dave is...
I just love the story of... it's David Lee Roth, Axl Rose, and Sebastian Bach at the Rainbow. You heard that story, right?
Yeah.
And he's like,
the Golden God.
We got a couple pretenders to my throne. And then Axl's like, what the fuck did he say? And then Sebastian's like, I am a pretender. I'll be honest. I thought that was a hilarious story.
Axl had a bad interaction. I think there was a trampling death at a festival that Guns N' Roses and Solo Dave played at. Ooh. And I think that was the first time that Dave met Axl, and Dave said something not cool around Axl, and he didn't like him at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of ties between Van Halen and Guns N' Roses because of Doug Goldstein and all that. But yeah, I think that with a lot of these people, we think of them as these rock gods, and maybe they were like that when they were 18 or 20 or 22, but at a certain point they became golf people or boat people. they kind of looked for new challenges, and the rock thing is just the day job. Like, I don't think if you hang out with REO Speedwagon that they're sitting around and talking about rock. I think they're talking about their 401ks and golf and their diverse investments and wine. That's probably what they're talking about.
No, for sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, I probably mentioned this too many times. People are sick of it, but my brother's wife's sister is married to the singer of Train. So I've hung out with him a few times. Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I've hung out with him, like, just like at like Christmas parties and stuff. And like, I mean, he's super down to earth. He's a super like just regular guy. I mean, you could talk music, you can ask him music questions, but that's not like his persona. And I think for the longest time, he didn't drink at all. Like, I would see him at the parties and he would be having like water and stuff. And I was like, oh, you don't drink? And he's like, no. And then for whatever reason, a few years back, I think he finally was like, I think you've taken a long enough break. I think he told me his wife was like, you work harder than anyone else. You can like enjoy a little bit. And then they got like a Train wine. So I think he started drinking wine, and I think he's loosened up a little bit, but yeah, he's not like a party crazy guy. But he's really fun, great front man. And when I've gotten tickets to their shows, which I was never a huge fan, but I've seen him live a few times. They put on a great show, and that guy can sing Led Zeppelin like nobody else I've ever seen, which is not easy to do.
A funny moment I had, because I wound up with a photo pass because I know one of the players in Train a little bit.
Oh, and, really? Jimmy, or what are the
Taylor, who used to be in the band Rooney.
Oh,
a great guy. And cool. I wound up so close at his part of the stage because everyone else was gravitating towards the center in the photo pit, because like, oh, let's follow everything that Pat is doing. And I went, sure, no, let's be over here. And I saw the set list, and the set list had all the like tricks for every song of the Train show. And it was funny because I'd never seen that before, where it's like the first song that they're doing, parentheses, t-shirts.
Yeah, every song has a gift. I loved that. That was so cool. They gave out t-shirts. There's one where they do a bunch of selfies. There's one with confetti. Yes. There's a beach ball song. Like not every song, but I feel like most songs had some sort of gimmick. And then it was cool too, because I just had this last tour they did. You mentioned REO Speedwagon. REO Speedwagon opened for them. They were supposed to, but the guy was sick. But the third band, Yacht Rock Review, was the opening. And I just had that guy on my show because I love that. I thought they did such a good job. I want to see them solo, but on their own show. But those guys were so fun. Did you see this last tour?
Yes, and I interviewed the Yacht Rock Review guy, who
you did too?
Very, very funny guy.
Yeah,
and Atlanta like comedy actor kind of guy before he got into this, right?
Oh, I don't even remember that. Yeah, no, I know that they were in some band. What did he call it? I forget the name. It had like a funny name, like your something like that. It was just like this plain word. It was like an alternative kind of like, kind of a mellow alt rock band before Yacht Rock. And it didn't, he said, we couldn't really take it anywhere. And then we did Yacht Rock Review and it took off. And I'm like, that's cool. And we were talking about how, like, I like Steel Panther. And I was like, your Yacht Rock Review kind of reminds me of Steel Panther. And he goes, oh yeah, totally. And then I guess if you see them when they're not opening for Train, they do a little bit of banter and stuff on the stage, which I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So I think they're playing like here, like around like the day after my birthday. So I might have to hit that.
So, bringing it back to you and being this interviewer person, I think if you were updating your credits and they go, who's been on your show? And you limited it to 5 to 10 artists, I would put Yacht Rock Review as one of those artists. Because I think that there's the Yacht Rock renaissance of sorts because of the HBO documentary. There's also the fact that Yacht Rock Review is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then so is Yachtly Crew. That's the West Coast one that Andy Gould manages.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about them. Yeah.
But if I were to say, oh, who's been on Chuck's show? And I think your average publicist, if you say John Corabi, they would go, who? I don't know who that is. And then you go, Bruce Kulick. Was Bruce ever on your show?
No, I asked for him a couple times. And I think Clint Schweitzer gave me his like direct email and he never replied. I think Adika had him. And I can't remember if Adika gave me an email, or maybe I texted Adika and I said, hey, is this the email that you use? And he goes, no. And then I don't know. Yeah. I was never able to get, I'm not a huge
offline. I'll give it to you, but
okay. Yeah.
I don't think that impresses the majority of people.
No, here's what I talk about when I talk about like Mark Normand, because he's a pretty big comedian. He does Rogan all the time. I had Fahim before he got too crazy, and he's a pretty big comedian. I talk about like Billy Bob Thornton because he won an Oscar. David Duchovny, Michael C. Hawks, he's Dexter, like those kinds of ones. And then Ann Wilson, I think she's probably my biggest musician, singer heart.
For sure. So those are great, great names. And I think that if it's a publicist who happens to be a lot younger than us, which unfortunately these days they are, they've never heard of these people.
Well, it depends on who else the publicist represents. So for instance, there's a publicist, she actually lives here. I've seen her at shows and stuff. And she manages some of the younger bands. So
no last name. Are we talking about Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So Kelly, I'll send, she helped me out with the Black Moods. And so she helped me get like Highly Suspect and some other people. So, like if it's I look at who I try to do similar artists, right? Like, so if I'm reaching out to a quote unquote hair metal person, I might mention John Corabi because they might know the singer of Motley Crue at one time. And, people like that. It depends. If it's a 70s artist, I'll mention Ann Wilson, or if it's a, TV person or movie person, then I'll do the Billy Bob Thornton. And if it's a comedian, obviously I'm going to mention Mark Normand and those kinds of people. So yeah, I think it just depends on who the guest is and who the publicist represents. And I usually am pretty good at getting a feel for those kinds of things, but I don't know. I mean, I just think those publicists are getting so many.
Not how you do it.
Okay. Well, you know better than me. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
So when they say who's been on your show, and this is something I've told you in the past, you don't say Don Dokken. You say members of Dokken, Motley Crue, And then you figure, and Hart. So in other words, if you say Ann Wilson,
but if I say a member of Heart, they might think it was like the bass player. When I had Ann Wilson, who is, sometimes I'll say, like, if I think they don't know, I'll do like Ann Wilson, singer of Heart, or something like that. So
but
then
if it hyperlinks on each of these in the signature, so they click through, they would see Ann Wilson. I think that having the hyperlinks in your show description is also a thing that most people don't do, because the more that you make people click through to find you, the more annoyed because let's say they're working off of their phone and they have a bad connection and all that. That's extra steps. The more steps you give publicists to looking you up, the more they go, I'll get to it later. And we all know that later means never for the majority of people. They're not motivated like you are. So, I'm happy to look at your signature and go, put this, and this. But the Thornton, the Duchovny, the Michael C. Hall, the Mark Normand, perfect. There's no reason you shouldn't be getting more of the guests you want. The question is, if you get a Mick Mars interview, is he going to be interesting? I don't know if he's going to be interesting because he's very slow these days.
That's what I heard about both Mick and Ace. They weren't that great.
Yeah.
In terms of interviews, I mean, obviously their careers are phenomenal. You can't argue with that. And I'm sure they're nice people. I'm not saying they were mean or anything, but sometimes like the people that are the best interviews are not necessarily the most famous, but like, in my opinion, like I thought Ted Nugent, I think he's an amazing interviewer. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says politically, but I think he's a great interview because his energy is through the roof. You never know what he's going to say. He usually doesn't say the same shit in interviews. He said stuff in my interview that I'm like, I've never heard him say this in any other interview. And I don't think I've ever even heard these things that he's saying are just hilarious. Like they're so funny and off the wall. And so, yeah, people like that sometimes are. Don Dawkin, which I'm not even a huge Dawkin fan. He was a great interview. Oh my God. The guy's an open book. He doesn't hold back. He called Vince Neil fat and said he tried to kill somebody. And like, I mean, I was like, dude, am I going to get sued for this? Is he going to get sued? Like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out, but yeah, he was amazing.
I like Donnie. I decided, I don't know why I thought to do this, but one of the last things that I asked Don Dawkins, good advice. Yeah, she's not wrong. I said, what do people call you when they get to know you? And he's like, some people call me Double D. Other people call me Donnie.
Don Dawkins said that?
Yeah.
Wait, is he from New York? Why'd you do a New York accent?
I don't know why he sounds like a grandma at this point, but he kind of talks like this. I don't know.
He doesn't have a Jewish New York accent, does he?
I mean, he's a very worldly guy. He lived in Germany and I think Sweden. Oh. I don't know if he has an accent at this point. He might be neutral, but he's got the rasp.
He does have the rasp. You've got that down. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I like my Donnie Dawkin. I also, you know what? Who is a fascinating interview that I didn't think would be? John Levin from Dawkin.
Yeah. No, I had him. I specifically sought him out because we were talking about him in Don Dawkin interview, and he was a lawyer, and then he was a manager, and then he's the guitar player, and he's a good guitar player, great guitar player. And so I thought, he might be a really interesting guy because he's very smart. And he was really nice. And it was different than Don because he didn't, he was a little bit more guarded, but he was very nice and very intelligent. Yeah, I liked him.
And I
like George Lynch too. Some people say he's a jerk or something. I was like, I fucking loved him. I thought he was great. He had such a dry sense of humor. He was joking. I was trying to remember what we were joking about, but he was sitting there laying in the bed, like same as Mark Normand. Both of those interviews are like, they're two of my biggest interviews, and both of them, they're just laying in bed. Like they just woke up and they don't even give a fuck, but they did my show. So it was cool.
Did George Lynch tell you about his mixed media art?
No, I don't think so. But is that what is mixed? What is that? Remind me again. Maybe
his conceptual art. Afterwards, he texted me some photos of his art.
Is this like porn or something, or what?
No, it's just repurposing objects into, I don't know if they're not paintings, they're not sculptures. I don't know what they are, but
okay.
He's an artistic gentleman. A lot of our favorite musicians, for better and for worse, have become painters and mixed media sculptors.
Yeah, isn't it like Howard Stern? That's like his favorite thing to do now is paint, right?
The man doesn't have hobbies, unfortunately. He photographs, he paints, But where's our Howard who liked better music than American Idol? Where's our Enough's Enough Howard to bring it all full circle?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Howard's more into like celebrities and I don't even know what. Yeah, I feel like some of these people should have just retired. Like, don't you think if he would have retired in say like 2015 or something, don't you think his legacy would be a little bit better than it is? I feel like I haven't even listened to Stern in years. Like it's not that I don't like him. I feel like I don't have time. And then there's so many there's the Joe Rogans and all these other ones that, that I feel like are bigger episodes that I never get to Howard Stern.
What Howard did at what I think his peak was in the 90s and early 2000s, I think is untouchable, but he wants to whitewash that legacy and be like, oh, I never made fun of Ellen DeGeneres, who I vacation with. And you go, don't you remember all the hard things you said about her and Jennifer Aniston and all these people?
Did they cut that out of the 101 old episodes, or?
I don't think they air that stuff. Did you ever see when a pre-fame Jennifer Aniston was on Howard Stern? She was a weight loss supplement model.
No.
Yeah.
Does a video exist?
I've seen the video. I know it was on the E! Show, and I think it's still on YouTube. But he said terrible things about all these people who ultimately became his vacation buddies and close friends. It's not like he loved Jimmy Kimmel all those years ago.
Well, right, but isn't that was part of his shtick? Was like, I mean, it's just like we were talking earlier about Doyle he's playing a character of the heel. Like, I mean, Howard Stern was like, I'm just going to be an asshole and I'm going to say whatever I think, and then people will love it, and people did. They'd tune in to hear what he would say, and that's what's so interesting now is like he's kind of a mainstream guy, even though he's on Sirius and he can swear and he can have girls run the Sybian or whatever. Like, he doesn't really do that stuff anymore. And also, I feel like. No. It would be kind of weird if he did, because he's like, we're talking about grandfathers. Like, I mean, he's got to be a grandfather at this point, right?
Yeah, he is a grandfather in his 70s. And what I have no problem with people evolving, going back to our earlier Madonna conversation, no problem with evolving and growing, but I have a problem with evolving and then pretending like you never did any of that old stuff.
Right. No, I think that's what's part of evolving is when you look back and you can laugh about that shit. Like, I could tell you stories about my 20s and 30s, or maybe even a couple of years ago in my 40s. Like, I was a fucking piece of shit, or I did something stupid, or got too drunk, or, it's like, I think that's life. Like, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. Right. And, yeah, I mean,
the Howard that I loved had a lot of Artie Lang great moments and a lot of Jackie Martling things, and we have to pretend like none of that ever happened. Because
Artie Lang, I think that was the peak for me, because we didn't have Howard Stern in Seattle, and so we didn't get it until the 90s, and so I don't even know if Jackie must have still been on at that, but I think I started to listen on the FM radio, and then I think they took it off. And then he goes on Sirius. So I think I joined Sirius at like 2004, maybe, or something around there, and got it. And then I think, when did Artie come in? Like around that time, right?
Jackie, I think, left in 2000, and Artie came in 2000 or 2001. And I think they went to Sirius in 2005.
Yeah. I don't think we got Howard until it might have been the late 90s, or like, I don't know if Jackie was ever on the Howard that I listened to. I feel like most of what I heard was Artie. And then especially when I really started getting into Stern after I moved here in 2008. And I think that was right when Artie left, and I was like, fuck. And then that was like, that sucked for me. And also they used to have Bubba the Love Sponge on Fridays. And I was just starting to get into that show. My buddy kept pushing me. You got to listen to Bubba. You got to listen. I was like, oh, okay. And I started listening. I was like, oh, this is actually, this is good. And I was getting into that. And that's when Tucker Carlson used to call in and to Bubba the Love Sponge as like the recurring guest or whatever it was. And I was starting to get into Bubba the Love Sponge, and then they cut Bubba out.
A lot of people, unfortunately, have cut Bubba out. I was watching
the last I know he still did something on some app or something. I was like, I don't know how to find you. Sorry. And I just never listened again.
Bubba is finally in 2024 ready to talk about Hulk Hogan and what really went down. That was the thing that popped up on my radar last night, that he was kind of going, And you know how Nick Hogan got out of jail. I did something really illegal, and I think the statute of limitations have run out. He's teasing like a shock jock
Really?
would, that whole thing.
Interesting. What do you think it was, or do you know? Like, is there any like hints about what happened, or?
Yeah, it's a hint about how he got the breathalyzer lower on the scene of the accident, and then there's also a hint about him maybe harassing a judge to get Nick out of solitary confinement in a certain way, because he was a legend there in Tampa. Hogan was, and Bubba was a legend right there in Tampa.
So wait, you're saying Bubba knows about this? That Hulk
Bubba was directly involved in all that as Hogan's best friend, or one of his best friends.
Oh, I didn't know they were best friends. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, there were years where Bubba was just getting all the work because he was Hogan's guy. So in other words, you had an accessible Howard Stern guy in that market who then could bring you all the Hulk Hogan exclusives. And Hogan was a big deal again because of the VH1 show, and I guess his daughter becoming sort of famous too. And
was his daughter a porn star, or did she just look like one? Or
she was positioned as a singer, and I believe Lou Pearlman was who was pushing her singing career. But
she was really decked out, like, right? She was real blonde with like big boobs, or was that his wife, or was it all of them? I don't remember.
That was more the daughter who changed her looks, but the daughter looked a lot like the wife. And I think it's fascinating. Did you watch the Lou Pearlman documentary series on Netflix?
No.
One of the best, hand to Mike right there. One of the best things you're going to watch this year. Even if you never liked the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Teen Pop, you'll love this Lou Pearlman doc.
He's the guy that managed them or something, or?
He basically bankrolled Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and then kind of tied that all into a Ponzi scheme without giving too much away.
Was he a pedophile, or am I thinking of a different guy that was?
You have to say the word allegedly a lot more.
Oh,
Chuck.
Okay. Allegedly.
See, allegedly, they go into that a little bit into the documentary about he's one of those people who didn't have a girlfriend and would be like, look at all these hot ladies. And then Richard Simmons style talking about all the hot ladies, but
volunteered on the weekends as a Boy Scout master or whatever. And
possibly, but how Lou Pearlman got his money to be able to fund the Backstreet Boys, you're gonna love it. I don't want to say what happened.
Okay, see, I need to watch that, because that's what I want to do. Is I want to get my money, and I want to bankroll, and I want to have so much power and money that then I can own these publicists. I'm gonna buy this publicist. Like, I have a funny story. When I was a kid, we were at this hotel in Spokane, Washington. And there was this guy, and he was getting married, had like a white tuxedo. And he said to my brother, he's like, shake my hand, little man, I'm getting married. And my brother's like, oh, okay. Shakes his hand. Later, we come back that night. The guy is hammered, and he's yelling at the hotel staff, and he goes, I'm going to buy this place. So that's like our joke that I always say, like, I'm going to buy this place. Like, when you get so drunk that you're just like, but that's how I sometimes feel with these publicists and all this bullshit. When they turn me down, I'm like, I want to buy the publicity agency or whatever they're called. And then I would own it. And then they'd have to do what I say. Right. I feel like that's how you got to get it. Like the Lou Pearlmans. I mean, without the criminal part of it, I mean, that's how you got to get somewhere in this world. It seems like you got to get some sort of power angle where the people are coming to you rather than you begging them, and you're trying to get their, trying to email them and beg them. Like, I want people coming to me and begging me. I don't know if I'll ever get there or how to do that. But if I watch this documentary,
if you do some of the things we talked about, the Cision, seeing if you can get yourself listed in Cision, you change your pitch a little bit. I think that those two steps might get you closer. But something that I've found that I don't know if it's ever reached you, I'm curious if this has happened. When you see that a publicist is awful to deal with when they're at agency A, and then they change jobs and they go to agency B, and they are a piece of cake, responsive, and awesome to deal with, you kind of realize, oh, that's the culture of that PR firm. That's a PR firm where the culture is to go publicist and artist here, writer here. or podcaster here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a few regular publicists that I deal with, but for the most part, I feel like a lot of times it's a different publicist. Like I'm always looking at certain guests and then I reach out. I mean, there's been some that I've worked with so many times and they've been fine. But no, I've never noticed that. Like you probably would know better than me. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting game, the whole publicist and yeah, it's an interesting way. You got to do this like almost like ass kissing or like, I don't know, win them over. Or I guess I'm not very good at that game. You know, like I feel like I'm pretty good at interviews, but I'd say above average personally, I think. But I mean, it's just like
you are an excellent interviewer who's pleasant to deal with. You may not follow up as many times as you need to. You know, Google can be your friend. Gmail can be your friend with scheduling follow-ups. Or you send the email and then you schedule 4 days from now, like to Monday, 8 a.m. Have I heard from them? And then you draft the email that automatically is going to go out at 1:17 p.m. And you do your barrage of follow-ups. You have your templates handy where they have the hyperlinks of all the great things that you've done. If you can think of any numbers, did this thing get 60,000 views? Did average, like you think of statistics that can benefit you. If you have those kinds of pitches and you stick with it long enough, you're undeniable. And then word's gonna like, I see that Terry comment. Can you bring that TV PC? Yes, you do have to say allegedly 5 times. That is correct.
It's a great word legally. It protects you. Everything we've said in this interview was allegedly. I don't know anything.
Everything was allegedly, but
nothing is 100%. Everything's alleged.
There's some artists that I've interviewed, let's say like, let's make them number 4 times. And each time was with a different publicist. You find out that they just fire the publicist every album cycle. They go, yeah, they didn't do a good job for me. And they hire a different one. And then you find other ones, like you mentioned Nugent before. Nugent's assistant, I think, has been there for 25 years, if it's still Linda.
Yeah, isn't that but I feel like, is her last name not Nugent? Is she like, I thought she was related to them or something. Maybe
I don't know, but she's been handling his calendar all these years.
Yeah. So but the last time I got him through, I think it was John Freeman. I'm not sure. I could be wrong because of the project he was doing or whatever. And we promoted that. And yeah, I highly recommend having him on. I mean, even it'd be interesting to have somebody that, you know, disagreed with him politically and try to like skirt that issue. I don't even know, but he's a barrel of laughs.
He's great. All you have to do is
that's my brother. Yeah. That's like our family joke. I'm going to buy this place. Like, yeah, we always say that.
That's a good callback, but I've interviewed Nuge 3 or 4 times and all you have to say is, hey, Ted, how's it going? He then talks for 7 minutes.
Yeah. He's the easiest interview you'll ever, and like, he'll crack me up. Yeah. I love those kind of the Don Dawkins, the Ted Nugents. I think Duchovny was actually, he's a little quiet, but he was a really good interview. He was one of the first people. I mean, he was one of my earlier big names, but it was so fascinating because I think I had done like, I don't know, 100 or 150 interviews at that point. And he was one of the first people that was asking, like, he was interested in me. He was like, oh, what's that poster on your wall? Oh, what is this thing? And I'm like, wait, like you're interested in me? Like, I'm just like a boring guy. Like what, you're a big movie star. Like, shouldn't we be talking about you? But and you could tell he's really smart. People who are really smart like that are very curious. So yeah, that was a fun one.
And so Duchovny was a case where I think the publicist said, you can't talk about X, Y, and Z. And then he just,
I don't think I even got
that stuff.
What's that?
Sorry?
I don't think I got that from the publicist. I mean, I think I kind of knew the assignment. I was like, okay, I got to promote the music, but I think I asked him, I think I had one X-Files question and one other like acting thing, just because I was like, I got to ask this. I knew not to ask if he believed in aliens, because I heard somebody on TV asking that. And he goes, I've answered this so many times or something. And so I was like, okay, don't ask him if he believes in aliens. So yeah.
Yeah. He was asking me about my hometown because it turns out that he'd been here and he's just a great interview. And I remember in that era, I also had Joss Stone, who couldn't have been nicer and more talkative and friendly and personable. And I just thought of her, this big star, this like million selling kind of person. She was accessible. So sometimes it keeps you guessing as to who's accessible and who's not. Like,
isn't it weird? Like, I love when you had Jason Biggs on, the the pie fucker. And it was so weird. Like you're like interviewing him and he goes, well, actually, Darren. And I was like, oh, it's so weird to hear Jason Biggs say your name, right? Isn't that weird to like hear that? Like you're just having in this conversation with the pie fucker, like he's just a regular guy. Like he's not this massive star. That was cool. That was a cool one. That was one of my favorite ones.
I think I had him 3 times.
Damn.
Once was some indie movie.
Does he remember you after the 3rd time or no?
I've had people say, oh yeah, I remember you, but they don't. What am I going to fight you on? Oh no, seriously. Right. I guess you kind of know your role. You're a necessary evil to get the commercial out that is their project in this interview. But the first time I had Biggs was on an indie movie that he was super passionate about that nobody was going to see. And then the second time, and if I did it a 3rd time, I might have done it a 3rd time. It was to promote the Edwards Pie Company. And
wait, he did a pie promotion? He's the pie fucker. What did he?
Yeah.
And then didn't he just do a thing? Was it on Kill Tony or was on some big podcast where they brought out a giant pie and he like made love to the pie? Like he like, it wasn't like he fucked, he like made love. It was like kind of funny and kind of cringy at the same time.
But it goes back to, for you and I, based on how old we are and how big American Pie was, we think like Jason Biggs is this huge, huge, huge star.
Sure.
But I can't get him. He's so famous. He's been in all these movies and TV shows. But the reality is he's going to do an indie project or a commercial junket that you can get him on. You won't get him for 40 minutes. You might get him for 10. But most of these people have these passion projects that you will get them on if you know where to look. And there's certain PR companies that don't pitch new albums. They just pitch these commercials and these media days so that Jason Biggs has to do 28 interviews in literally 5 hours. And
but don't you get to the point where, how long, because you've been doing this for way longer than me, like 20 years or something. Don't you get to a point where you feel like you've surpassed the being another cattle in the herd, that you're just another number of one of the junkets? Like, shouldn't you be bigger than just another interviewer of a junket? Like, I feel like you deserve to. I've watched your interviews. Your interviews are solid. Like, there's no awkwardness or like weird. I mean, you're really smooth.
There are definitely lots of awkward moments still.
That maybe okay. That's maybe everybody, but I'm saying like, you should have reached a level where you have more cred and you're more than just one of the 28 junket people. Like, I don't know why have you not? Why is like Entertainment Tonight or some like Yahoo Entertainment or somebody like stolen you up and picked you up for like a bigger assignment?
I've had people reach out and go, hey, you should be here. But the thing is, I didn't necessarily want to play by all their rules or change who I was or what I do. I unfortunately, like, do you know the band Guided by Voices?
It sounds familiar.
Super lo-fi band. And they put out a new album probably every 9 months. And the singer then puts out 2 or 3 side project albums every year.
What kind of music is it? Why does it sound familiar?
Sort of indie rock, sort of power pop.
Okay.
Sort of sounds like 60s Who in a good way. Really great band that inspired a lot of people that everyone covered, including Jimmy Eat World. And the albums don't sound good. They sound like Guided by Voices. It's very lo-fi. They did an album with Rick Ocasek that was overproduced, but it sounds like Guided by Voices. And Devo is also like a super lo-fi kind of band. And I just find I don't want to try and play the game to appeal to casual things. I kind of unfortunately like to be my own thing. And people can criticize that as much as they want, but I don't know. The Entertainment Tonight is like too glossy, too fake, too... Nobody buys the thing because they saw it on Entertainment Tonight. Have you bought anything because you saw it on Entertainment Tonight?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking like if there was a movie or TV show and I've heard about it through, I could hear about it through a million different things, but yeah, if I was I guess maybe those shows are outdated, but I'm saying something similar because there are a lot of like stories that you hear, like, and they're done with interviews from people like that, like from some, like People Magazine or Time, which I'm not reading People Magazine, but I heard the story because the story went viral, or, those kinds of things, those kinds of jobs. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, there's not some sort of bigger step for you.
It's also a fear not believing in yourself kind of thing. It's an imposter syndrome thing that I've fought most of my life, that you go, like, but they're so much better than me. And it wasn't until I don't know what age that I kind of realized that all artists or creators are insecure in some way and think that whatever they just did sucked. Well, except Sammy Hagar, because every album he did was just the best album he ever did.
Sure.
But Eddie Van Halen was not confident at all. He was a shy guy. He didn't.
That's crazy, because he's amazing. Yeah.
He was maybe the greatest ever. And when I worked on the artist management end, that really exposed me to just how an artist could just like kill it on stage. And you'd talk to them 1 or 2 minutes before they got off, and you'd see all the nervous energy and watching them try to come down. Most people don't realize the artist is a ball of nerves before they get on stage, and they're pacing. They go on stage, they're at home, they kill it, and then they come off stage and they're all trying to come down. And I just don't think the average person realizes that process also applies to interviewing. Can you just break into a normal conversation within 2 minutes of doing an interview?
I think I can now. Now, when I started, the first 50 or 100, or like, I can't remember what David Duchovny, but David Duchovny, no. Mark Norman, with like, when I was in that phase, no. I mean, maybe now if I had somebody that big, I haven't had a lot of big guests lately, but if, maybe I would get nervous ahead. But now, no, I usually don't. I'm kind of just like, I feel like I'm kind of equal to a lot of these guys, and maybe that's cocky. I don't know, but I just feel like this guy's not. Maybe I just tell myself that I'm like, oh, this is no big deal. This is just, this is just some musician. I've talked to a million of them.
I'm going to have to ask your girlfriend if that is true. If you can be talked to within 2 minutes of doing an interview, you're not a crazy person that goes, I used to put food in my mouth or exercise right now.
No. She can tell you, I definitely used to be, because she works from home, or she used to work from home a lot. When I first started, because it was during the pandemic. So she'd be in her office. I would go in there and I'd be like, I'm so nervous. Like, I'm so scared. I can't do it. And then she's like, oh, you're going to be fine. But you do this every time. And then afterwards I'd go in there and I'd be like, I'm like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, oh, I fucking killed it. I kicked ass at that interview. It's the exact opposite. But now I feel like it's more even keeled. Like, yeah, there's a little nerves ahead of time and there's a little bit of a high after, but it's not like it was in the beginning where, I would get real freaked out at the beginning for sure. So
I don't get nervous for them anymore. It's just after I'm done with it, I can't come down right away. I have to do something like right away that is somehow using energy or senses. That has changed. So tomorrow, I think I have 4 interviews. Stupidly, I don't know why I said yes to 4 things, because I see that and I go, what am I doing? This is so stupid. Then once they're actually posted, edited, and they're done, I go, that was fun. I should do more of this. But right now it's like, oh, why am I doing 4 interviews tomorrow? I could be doing so many other things. This is why. What are you trying to prove here?
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I love what you're doing. You're doing great stuff. I love your interviews. People should subscribe. They can get your book. What is it? Is it just the David Lee Roth book? I can't remember the title of it.
DLR book, How David Lee Roth Changed the World. And
that's right. That's the full title. Yeah, that's on Amazon, everywhere. Not on Audible, but they can get a print version or digital. And what else can you promote? Anything else?
If you need a PI, look me up.
There you go.
And I can do that if it's legal. And then I also still have the DLR Cast podcast about Roth with my co-host Steve Roth, no relation. That keeps going. And otherwise, you never know if there'll be another book. The Paltrocast itself is on 150 plus stations and OTT carriers. Just Google me, find me. If I can help you, I'll help you.
Follow you on Instagram. I know you're on there, and I think you're on Twitter X too. So very cool. Thank you so much for doing this, Darren. Great to talk to you, and stay in touch.
Pleasure's all mine. And thank you for being a positive voice and in generally like an easy to work with, easy to deal with person. I'm going to disagree with what you said earlier. You said that most people like this in entertainment. No, they're not Chuck Shute.
Oh, okay. Well, I try. Thank you so much. All right.
Likewise. Thank you
See you, buddy.